Daniel's dream and Daniel's vision. Verse number 2, Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea. When you hear sea in Bible terminology, probably it's talking about the nations of the world or peoples of the world. Okay? Revelation 17:15, I'll give you a reference from Revelation. The waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. The whore, I believe, referring to the religious system. There is a system of religion. Started a long, long time ago, and the umbrella is reaching out further and further. The swan song of the day is what? Everybody come under the big tent. Everybody speak the same thing. Well, we can't do that. We can't do that because a lot of what they got to say conflicts with the Holy Word of God, so we can't do that. So I guess we'll be the stick in the mud that stands out, and that's all right. That's all right. The Great Sea always refers to the Mediterranean Sea. Okay, remember when we talk about world empires, just a reminder, we're not talking about global empires. Okay, the world was, travel and knowledge and so forth. It was not as wide-ranging as what we know today. Okay, so their world was that part of the earth. It was their world. Okay, it's the Mediterranean Sea. The four winds that strove speaks of the great conflict, strife, and commotion. The four winds speak of this conflict coming from every direction. Reminds you of today, turmoil everywhere. Turmoil everywhere. And four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse or different one from another. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. The reference here, the lion with eagle's wings, in archaeology digs and in history, you will find that the lion with the eagle's wings was a prominent symbol on Babylonian coins, on Babylonian architecture. The lion, of course, who is referred to as the king of beasts, and the eagle, the chief of the birds, aptly describes the powerful rule of Babylon under Nebuchadnezzar from 605 to 539 BC. In Nebuchadnezzar's vision, the image, what was Nebuchadnezzar referred to in the statue or the image? What? He was the what? The head of gold. Okay? Purity, gold, value. Okay? Nebuchadnezzar basically was absolute ruler. Okay? He didn't really answer to anybody. But as you keep going further down the statue, what happens? The metals will increase in strength and durability, but they're less in value. So that is good to bear in mind. Okay? But his kingdom, in essence, was a very pure or a very simple kingdom. The structure of it was very simple. There wasn't a lot of gridlock in Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom, unless he was just wrestling with something in his own mind, I guess. Okay? The eagle's wings probably speak of swiftness of conquest, while the wings plucked likely refers to the revolt of some of the provinces as time went on. Now, some people will look at prophecy such as this, and they will say, okay, the lion, and there can be secondary meanings in prophecy. I'm not going to say for sure that this is the only meaning is Babylon, because some people will look at it and they will say, okay, the lion represents England, and the wings that were plucked off, the eagle's wings represents America, because America separated from Britain or England. Okay, I can't prove that to you. Okay, I can't tell you that there's not a secondary meaning there, but I can't tell you that there is. Okay, so I'm not going to go out on that limb. But the primary meaning, I believe, is that it fits with the other visions, such as Nebuchadnezzar's vision. Okay, so I'm going to stick with that it is a representation of Babylon, specifically under Nebuchadnezzar. Verse 5, and behold another beast, a second, like to a bear. And it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh. The fierceness of the Medo-Persian soldiers is depicted in the bear of verse 5. Since Persia was more powerful, the bear is shown raised on one side. When the Medes and Persians overthrew Babylon, they also conquered Lydia and Egypt. So that would probably be symbolic of the 3 ribs that they had that the bear had in his teeth. Medo-Persia ruled the Middle East from 539 to 331 BC. It was considered the world empire of that time period. After this, verse 6, I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. The leopard, we believe this to be none other than Alexander the Great. The 4 wings speak of great swiftness. Alexander conquered the world in a very short period of time. The 4 heads refer, we believe, to the division of the empire after his death, at which time the empire was divided among 4 of his generals. Syria fell to, I guess, the general Seleucus. Greece was divided to, kind of looks like Listerine, Lysimachus, and I'll guess at that one. Thrace under Cassander. Egypt under Ptolemy. And the Greeks ruled from 331 to 168 BC. After this, verse 7, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly. How many Gentile world empires were there? Anybody remember? Had 4, okay? The 4th beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly. And it had great iron teeth. Remember iron? Iron is symbolic of Rome. Okay? It devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Remember, the metals, as we go down the image, what? They lose in value, but they gain in strength. So you get to Rome, it is compared to iron, and that's an old catchphrase, the iron rule of Rome. Okay? I considered the and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. This 4th beast is the last form of Gentile world dominion, beginning with the Roman Empire. The little horn specified there most likely is a representation of the man of sin, the Antichrist. And I know you could say, and I meant to go back and get that date from an earlier message, but the western side of the Roman Empire, I believe, dissolved in 4-something AD. And people could say, wait a minute, Pastor, Rome has not existed since that time. Rome never ceased to exist. That's right. You hear me? And please listen up real close right here, because I love all people everywhere. I may not agree with some of their concepts, but I love people. There was a marriage of what? Government, under Rome. Government, paganism, and what? Christianity. A 3-fold union, if you will. Okay? So while the civil side of Rome disappeared, was conquered or fell to the barbarians, what happened to the religious side? It kept functioning. It functions to this day. It controls great wealth. In fact, I am told that most of your ships of the sea fly under the Vatican flag because the tax rates are lower. Incredible incredible wealth flows into that system. Okay? So Rome never ceased to exist. Only the civil government side fell. That system never stopped. It never stopped. Okay? So it really, when you get down to the feet of the image, there's a marriage, if you remember, of iron and clay, which you don't build a statue out of iron and clay. It won't stick together. You especially, if you're going to build some kind of a statue or figure, you're certainly not going to put heavy metal at the top and then put clay at the bottom of it. Okay? Makes no sense whatsoever. But yet in the dream, that's what it's like, or in the image, or the vision, that's what it's likened to. Okay? The little horn I spoke about most likely is a representation of the man of sin, the Antichrist, who will rise up out of that. The Antichrist will not function alone. He will not, hear me? He will not function alone. There will be a counterpart to him called what? The false prophet. Okay? So there will be, and it's already forming. I believe that. Like I said, you've got that spirit that is gathering everybody. Yeah, we've talked about that, haven't we, Brother Ron? There's people, I don't mean to come across mean-spirited this morning, but there are people that are kissing the Pope's ring that we'd have never thought. That we never thought would have. Okay? All right. Revelation 13:1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his, what is Rome known as? The city of 7 what? Hills. Okay? 7 heads and 10 horns. And upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a... Now look. Now we've got John writing in this passage. So look at the order in which he describes it. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon, or who's the dragon? Satan, the devil. Okay? And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. The devil's got power. Don't ever get cocky with the devil. Even Michael the archangel. Did I tell you all the story about Brother Barnes left us, about 10 years ago? He was a true, a lot of people claim to be prophet. He was a true prophet of God. But Jewish rabbis would fly in from, I think maybe even overseas, to Minden, Louisiana, just a little town there in Louisiana, just to spend a few minutes with Brother Barnes. He was a true prophet of God. But we had a conference in Jerusalem, maybe back in the 70s, and Brother Barnes went to that conference. And Brother Casey, when he got to his hotel, he was tired, from his journey. He went to his room, and he laid down for just a little bit. He just got laid down a little bit, Brother E.J., and a power came into that room, knocked him off his bed. Light the color of the rainbow raced around the room, and a figure stood there that said, "I'm Michael. I came to welcome you to Jerusalem." That's power. In fact, he told Brother Stone King, he said, "Michael and I have worked on many projects together. We work quite well together." And he had the walk with God that he could say stuff like that. But these folks are real. Even Michael, though. See, there was a dispute at one time about the body of Moses. Take a note from that. If Michael, and we believe him to be the chief of the warrior angels and the guardian over Israel, specifically. Okay? When there was this dispute arising between Lucifer and Michael about the body of Moses, what did Michael say? He didn't rebuke him on his own. He said, what? The Lord rebuke you. Always stand in the power of the Lord. Don't ever, I'm telling you today. I've done a little bit of wrestling in my time too. I claim I've wrestled Lucifer Drake. Stay close to God. Yeah, absolutely. Stay close to God. I'm serious, folks. I'm serious. Watch what your input is. Watch what your input is. Don't get an attitude with him like, yeah, I told the devil the other day. You get close to your daddy and let him. Now, you do have authority, but you better make sure you're walking in your Father's authority.
Right. That's right.
You better make sure you're walking in your Father's authority. All right? Daniel saw the beast in reverse order from what John did. See, Daniel was looking at it in his time. Okay, he was of the time of Babylon and Medo-Persia, so he was looking forward. Then the leopard, then the great beast, the great iron beast, or the beast with iron teeth. Okay, but what was John looking at? John was looking at it backward. Okay, so notice the order right here. He described them: the leopard, the bear, and then the lion. Okay, he was living in the time of Rome. Okay, the dragon gave him his power, his seat, and great authority. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death. Remember, Rome never really stopped, never truly. Okay, so this Antichrist, this man of sin that will arise, and I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast, after the Antichrist, and they worshipped the dragon. They worshipped the devil, which gave power unto the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? You think, how could people be so deceived? Honey, they already deceived. And I know we've talked about it some lately. Last Sunday, I think Sister Perkins, we were standing outside talking about, there's some of the most crazy, insane talk coming out of supposedly knowledgeable people on a national level. I've never heard anything like it in all my life.
Right.
It's nuts. People talking like this years ago, you'd have locked them up. You'd have locked them up. But it's just, in some circles, it's accepted as the norm. Honey, it's a day to pray. You hear me today? It's a day. We better have a firm grip on the horns of the altar. We better not have any room for anything that is not like the Spirit of God. God, protect my mind, protect my heart. Listen to this. This is the way Paul put it. 2 Thessalonians 2:7. For the mystery of iniquity. Okay? The Greek word there is anomia. It means simply violation of law. Know it. Live by it. Don't discount one little bit of it and say, well, Jesus understands. I think he's gotten kind of old and senile and he won't even notice me doing this. Know this book, live by this book. If you were to be going through Blue Ridge, Georgia, and going a little bit too fast for exceeding the speed limit, and see some blue lights flashing behind you, and our fine brother Samuel Rosiles pulls you over, you were to say, Brother Samuel, I didn't know I was in a 35-mile zone. I don't know how much leeway he has or not. He might tell you and be very much within his rights and be by the book and say, ignorance of the law is no excuse. And all that's going to do is cost you some out of your back pocket.
Right.
This could cost you way more.
That's right.
Could I emphasize to you today? Yeah, you don't want us to you want us to keep our nose stuck in the Bible all the time. Yeah. More and more all the time, I would say. It's way more important than Facebook. Well, glory, hallelujah. Boy, I stepped on that sacred cow, didn't I? It is more and more and more important as we see the day approaching. Love this thing. If the King James is a little bit thee and thou-ish too much for you, get you an ESV. Get you an Amplified Bible. I've been loving the Amplified. It's a good conservative translation as well. Okay, if that will help you do it, and then you know what? Pray. That's a Bible principle too. If any man lack wisdom, let him do what? Ask of God. And where's the main source of wisdom? Ask. That's right. I try. My mind goes 1,000 days. Ask God to give you a love for His Word, and He will. He will give you a love for you. I got to move on. The mystery of iniquity simply means violation of law. Doth already work. It's already there. It's already here. It was there in Paul's day. Only he who now letteth or restraineth will let or will restrain until he be taken out of the way. I believe with all my heart that's the church. It is the non-compromising church that is holding this stuff back.
That's right.
It can't have its perfect way because the church is restraining it. All right. The little horn. The little horn is none other than the Antichrist found in the New Testament. He's known by other names. The man of sin, the son of perdition, that wicked. Those terms are all found in 2 Thessalonians 2 verses 3 through 8. He's known as the Antichrist, 1 John 2:18. He's known as the beast in Revelation 13, 1 through 8. John saw him in Revelation 13 as having the combined abilities and powers of the leopard, the bear, and the lion Gentile kingdoms. Could it be that he will possess all the combined abilities of Nebuchadnezzar, Xerxes, Alexander, and Caesar? Is that possible? Is that what it's trying to tell us? He will possess superhuman powers and will dominate the political scene of the world. Some people speculate, as Jesus was God in flesh, that He will be literally the devil in flesh. Saying that for sure, but you know how the devil loves to copy God's ways and then twist them a little bit, or a whole lot. Okay, this study that we've been doing, of course, is centered on Daniel. I do provide some links along the way to Revelation, some tie-ins, but Revelation goes into a lot more extensive detail. Okay, what I hope that I'm doing is whetting your appetite for an extensive study. Because what's the principle? The mind can only absorb what the seat can endure. So, I try to bear that in mind. But I hope that as we are studying together, that this merely will whet your appetite to do an extensive study on your own. Somebody say, praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord.
All right. I would love, to get into a really a breakdown of Revelation at some time. Verses 9 through 14 in this chapter speak of God's judgment upon the kingdom of the Antichrist and then the setting up of His eternal kingdom. Now let's get in verse 15 to the interpretation of the dream, Daniel's dream. I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit, in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. I came near unto one of them that stood by and asked him the truth of all this. So he told me and made me know the interpretation of the things. These great beasts, which are four kings, which shall arise, out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom. Hold on. Hold on. The end is in sight, and we know who the winner is. The church is going to be victorious.
Yes.
Make sure you get in and abide in the church.
Yes.
Hear me this morning? It's prophesied the church will come out on the other side victorious.
Yes.
The question mark is, will I be in the church? That's up to me. That's up to me. I'm going to be in the church. I'm going to be in the church. There's no future in anything else. Verse 19, then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron and his nails of brass, which devoured, brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet. And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints and prevailed against them. Okay? The 10-nation confederacy that will arise to form at least the basis of the revived Roman Empire. But the little horn, what? He basically displaces 3 horns. So he uses 3 kingdoms or 3 countries. It looks similar to what Hitler did in World War II. What? He uses those 3. He grabs power there and uses that as his base to take the rest of it. Okay? Revelation 13:7. And it, look, this one word right here in this verse I want to draw attention to. And it was what? Somebody say that next word. It was given unto him. Everything has to come to the devil by permission.
Right. Amen.
Hang on to that one. Again, stick close to your Father. Stick close to your Father. Nothing can come your way except what God allows to happen to you. And if you don't allow your relationship with Him to be broken, to be severed, anything that comes your way, oh, this is hard, this is abrasive, this is chipping away at me. Well, I guess there's some parts of us that still need to be chipped away then, huh? Paul said, I am crucified with Christ. Do you know it is physically impossible to crucify yourself? In the physical? It is impossible for you to lay down on a cross. If you could take the pain, you might get the first. Then what do you hammer this side with? Who crucified Jesus? Yeah. In the physical, though, on that day, who crucified Him? The Roman soldier. It took another man or men to do it. Oh, I am crucified with Christ. Who do you think's going to do the crucifying? People are going to crucify you. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Jesus doesn't crucify you, and you can't crucify yourself. God will allow people, and sometimes they'll be yoked up with spirits that aren't so nice either, to do what? There's a little rough spot right there. But he said, I am crucified with Christ, what? Yet I live. Yet not I, but what? Christ live. So with every bit of, that's less of Dotson and what? More of Jesus. And that's the aim. I am being, Tammy, crucified with Him. Why are they being so mean to me? If we would judge ourselves, we would have no need of judgment. But that's not fun. We don't like to go. You know the difference between boy, I'm getting off on rabbit trails this morning. You know the difference between Old Testament sacrifice and New Testament sacrifice? Old Testament sacrifice didn't have any choice in the matter. The lamb didn't have any choice. He could drag, bleating, yelling, whatever. And once that throat was slit, it was on the altar. But there's a challenge. We've jumped to another testament now. A New Testament, a new covenant. And now we do what? We present ourselves a living sacrifice unto God, holy, acceptable, which is our reasonable service. The problem with living sacrifices is this: they tend to want to revive and crawl back off the altar. So Jesus sends somebody along that, they're just not so nice to me. Why don't they like me? And, honey, Jesus came along healing sick, raising the dead, healing lepers, restoring blind folks' eyes, their sight, and they hung him on a cross, what do you think they're going to do to you? You think you're going to get a parade every day? That same spirit is still in the earth. They hated him, they're going to hate you.
Right, right.
But Jesus says, all of this, it's all going to work to my glory, though.
There you go.
Now, the devil, don't play with the devil. He is not dumb, but he is dumb compared to Jesus. Jesus said, yeah, I see what you're doing. I know. Go to work. Work for me for free. Brother Robert grabbed my arm the other night. He said, man, yeah, it looked like about a bird egg on a stick, but whatever there is, I owe it to my relentless trainer. You know what? Jesus uses the devil. He uses him.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does. The only way that the devil gets any kind of success is if I quit.
That's the truth.
But if I am determined to hold out to the end, if I'm convinced that Jesus is with me, on Him I can depend. Was that not fun last night when our nephew Frank, I didn't call his name out, I should have. Our nephew Frank was with us, and the young lady that was with him, Elizabeth Sweet, they go to Brother Walden's church. I mean, Brother Carpenter started on. That girl not shy. She just started singing, finishing the rest of the song. I said, "You got a really pretty voice." I don't know. I'm getting off on something. I don't need to get on. All right. Anyhow, the devil is given power.
Right.
He doesn't have the power to take it. He does not have the power to get in your mind and make decisions. Flip Wilson was wrong, if you can remember him. That was his catchphrase, wasn't it? Yeah. The devil made me do it. No, the devil can't make you do anything. That poor man that had the legion of devils inside of him.
Come on now. Come on.
However many there was. If there's 1,000 or however many of them that there was inside of him. When he saw Jesus, that one man's will overpowered all the demonic influence inside of him, and he ran and fell at the feet of the Lord. His neighbors, the people around him, they tried many times to bind him up with chains, Brother Casey, and the superhuman strength inside of him from those spirits would break those chains, and he'd wander about in the tombs and cut himself and wail. But when he saw Jesus, he ran to him. He made up.
Oh, God. Oh,
Dean Livingston preached this years ago. He said, we preach against makeup, but he said there's one place that it's all right to put makeup and it's all right to put it on your mind. He said, put that makeup on your mind. Yeah. Make up your mind to serve God. Make up your mind. Because that's where we're deficient, So we need to make up the difference.
Yeah.
We need to make up the difference.
Yeah.
Glory. Verse 22. And I get through verse. It was given unto him to make war with the saints to overcome them, and power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. It was given to him. He does not have the power to take it. He'll try to make you think he does.
Right.
You ever feel like you're in a vice sometimes? Like he's just closing it. I'm being facetious, but it's not funny. Boy, there are some heavy feelings sometimes. And that's what he's wanting. He's wanting you to feel hopeless.
Right.
He feels hopeless.
Yes, he is.
He feels hopeless. That's him around you.
Right.
That's his spirit.
Right.
You imagine being goodness gracious, I'm going over. You imagine being an angel in the presence of God somewhere back in eternity past, having fellowship with God, and for rebellion, you get kicked out of heaven, and there's no hope of redemption. For eternity. No hope. Chains of darkness is all that they got. That's their future. You'd feel hope, but they want to, as long as they're loose, what are they going to do? They're going to get around it. There's no hope. There's no hope. Oh no. Oh no. I read my Bible. I know who's winning. I know who's winning. But that's why you got to read your Bible. You got to be reminded of this stuff. Okay, I got to move on. Verse 22, until the Ancient of Days came, I guess we know who that is, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break it in pieces. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise. And another shall rise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. As I said, that's where he gets his power base. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. And they shall be given into his hand until what? A time and times and the dividing of time. 1, 2.5 is what? 3.5. Okay? The tribulation period will begin with a time of what? False peace. A total of 7 years. It will begin with a time of false peace, the first 3.5. The last 3.5 will be hell on earth. It will be horrible. It will be horrible. Okay? The Antichrist will have power during the last half of the tribulation period specifically. During his reign, he will try to change laws and customs and will do all possible to wear out the saints. It may be noted that the devil is trying, I guess I've already kind of said that, to do this even in this present day. He delights in putting pressure upon the saints to wear them out and to discourage them. 2 Corinthians 4:8. Paul said, we are troubled on every side. What? Yet not distressed. Trouble all around, but not distressed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. We don't have our Pollyanna glasses on, and everything's just hunky dory. I'm seeing the world through rose-colored glasses or whatever. No, we know that there's trouble, but we're not in despair. We are persecuted, but we're not forsaken. Come on. He promised never to leave me alone. He made me a promise. Made me a promise. Cast down, we feel like many times, but not destroyed. Verse 26, but the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion to consume and to destroy it unto the end. So we know what his end is. Oh goodness, let's try to move quickly. Daniel 8:1, in the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me Daniel, after that which appeared unto me at the first. This vision was given to Daniel during the 3rd year of the reign of Belshazzar, his last year in other words, the same year of the handwriting on the wall and of the fall of Babylon. And I saw in a vision, and it came to pass, when I saw, that I was at Shushan or Susa in the palace, which is in the province of Elam. And I saw a vision, and I was by the river Ulai. Daniel was in Babylon, but he was transported to the river Ulai, located in Shushan or Susa. It was the chief city of England, that province at that time, for the purpose of the vision. Shushan became one of the principal cities of the Medes and Persians. In fact, the entire story of Esther took place in Shushan, which is today the Iranian town of Shush. Then I lifted up mine eyes, verse 3, and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, so that no beast might stand before him. Neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand, but he did according to his will and became great. This ram represents the kings of Media and Persia, Daniel 8:20. It is significant that the national symbol of the Medo-Persian Empire was a ram. Daniel saw the 2nd horn higher than the first, and it came up last. In the beginning, Media was the stronger of the 2 nations, but gradually Persia became the real power in that empire. Verse 5, and as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground. In other words, representing speed once again. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. And he came to the ram that had two horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram, and brake his two horns. And there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground, and stamped upon him. And there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. Therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and for it came up 4 notable ones toward the 4 winds of heaven. The he-goat came from the west, traveled with great speed. He attacked the ram with great anger, and he subdued it. This he-goat was the Grecian leader Alexander the Great. I believe that. In a short period of time, he conquered practically the then known world. After a career of drunkenness and debauchery, he died very young in 323 BC, only 32 years of age. He had reigned for only 12 years and 8 months. The 4 notable horns which came up were his 4 generals who divided the empire. And out of one of them came forth a little horn which waxed exceeding great, toward the south and toward the east and toward the pleasant land, Palestine, the Holy Land. And it waxed great even to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the host and of the stars to the ground and stamped upon them. Obviously, this army of men did not reach up into the heavens. But you start attacking God's people, the covenant people, okay, that's where some of this language comes in, stamped upon them. What's the meaning behind it? I will tell you what I believe that it was. The little horn was literally fulfilled in the person of a Greek leader known as Antiochus Epiphanes, who came out of Syria. He made many promises to the Jews only to break them later. See, when Alexander conquered that area, as long as they paid their taxes, their tribute to him, he was cool with their customs. He didn't really mess with it. So they were allowed to continue practicing Judaism, the rites of the temple, and so forth. But when the empire was divided into 4, and then finally power passed down to Antiochus, what did he do? He said the process of the Greeks putting their culture, if you will, upon the then known world was known as Hellenization. Okay? So when they came, the Greek influence came into Palestine. They learned how to write and how to speak Greek. They knew some of the Greek traditions and so forth, but they did not adopt that, the Greek false gods, as their gods. They kept the worship of Jehovah God intact. But when we get down to the time of Antiochus, he became zealous that everybody was going to worship like a Greek. And severe persecution came upon the Jewish people during that period of time. Okay? He made many promises to the Jews only to break them later. He absolutely desecrated the temple, put Greek idol statues in the temple, killed the priest, and this was the insult above all insults. He sacrificed a pig upon the altar. You think, that's the end. Oh, no, honey, it wasn't the end. It lit a fuse. You only push so far. You only push so far. There is a catalyst of some sort that will ignite God's church. I don't know what I hope it doesn't come to persecution. I can't guarantee that it won't. I would love for it to happen without persecution. I would love for God's people to get stirred up like the early church without persecution. I hope that's what happens. But it will happen. There will be great harvest at the very end. Yes. It's just a question, will I be a part of it? Will I be a part of it? Okay? This is you can, like that book you've got on Jerusalem, you're getting ready to start, or are starting into it's known as the Maccabean period. Very, very fascinating time in the history of the Jewish people. let me read a few more scriptures and I'll give you a little more background on that. Yea, verse 11, He magnified Himself, you can stand with me, even to the prince of the host, and by Him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of the sanctuary was cast down. And an host was given Him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression, and it cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced and prospered. Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto that certain saint which spake, How long shall the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot, how long is it going to last? And he said unto me, Unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. So from the time that temple sacrifice was broken off, the temple was defiled, the temple was desecrated. Maybe that's the best way to put it. This was the literal length of time to the day. God doesn't play, honey. He says down to the day. It happens down to the day. Literally. This will send a chill up here. Read about this time. I found even a YouTube video about this length of time. I think it might have been on Discovery. I just got through a few minutes of it. This was the literal length of time between the desecration of the temple by Antiochus and the deliverance of Jerusalem under Judas Maccabeus. It was exactly 2,300 days to the day. To the day. Judas Maccabeus, he was also known as Judah Maccabee, was a Jewish priest and a son of the priest Mattathias. He led what was known as the Maccabean revolt against the Seleucid Empire. That was one of the divisions when Greece broke up. You ever thought about, long about our Christmas time? We'll say, Merry Christmas. And then you've got the Jewish people, not exactly then, but close to that time of year. What do they celebrate? Hanukkah. Hanukkah. This is where Hanukkah stems from. The Jewish holiday of Hanukkah, when it means dedication, commemorates the restoration of Jewish worship at the temple in Jerusalem in 164 BC, after he removed all of the statues depicting Greek gods and goddesses and purified it. Judas was killed later on. His two brothers, Jonathan, I believe, and the other one's not coming to mind right now, they picked up the torch, so to speak, of Jewish revolt, and for a period of time they actually had their independence back as a country. They threw off the yoke of Greece, and then Rome came in eventually. But they did have, for a period of time, Judah was an independent country. Verse 15, And it came to pass when even I, Daniel, had seen the vision and sought for the meaning, then behold, there stood before me as the appearance of a man. And I heard a man's voice between the banks of Ulai, which called and said, Gabriel, make this man to understand the vision. Gabriel, we believe to be the chief of the messenger angels. So he came near where I stood, and when he came, I was afraid. I guess I'd be too. And fell upon my face. But he said unto me, Understand, O Son of Man, for at the time of the end shall be the vision. God does not want His people walking in ignorance. Hear me? If we walk in ignorance, it's our own fault. Don't walk in ignorance that day would overtake you as a thief. Now, as I was speaking, understand, O Son of Man, for at the time of the end shall be the vision. I'm trying. Now, as he was speaking with me, I was in a deep sleep on my face toward the ground, but he touched me and set me upright. And he said, Behold, I will make thee know what shall be in the last end of the indignation. For at the time appointed the end shall be. The ram that you saw, that's the kings of Media and Persia. The rough goat is the king of Grecia. The great horn's the first king. Now that being broken, 4 stood up, 4 kingdoms, but not in the power of Alexander. And in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. Worship team, you can come forward. And his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. And he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. And through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand. And he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy or deceive many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. We don't know. We don't know, so I don't want to try to make it out to be something that I don't know it to be. You know, when the Lord comes back, set up His kingdom, you know who's going to grab the devil and put him in the pit? That's probably a job for Michael. You know, one unnamed angel. Not 20 or 30 or 100 going to have to... One angel, Brother Ronnie, grabs him and puts him in the pit. One. The vision of the evening and the morning which was told is true. Wherefore shut thou up the vision, for it shall be for many days. And I, Daniel, fainted and was sick certain days. He was physically exhausted, probably from the spiritual experience. You ever been there? You ever been there with God, in a place with God, you're just as weak and limp as a dish rag? You ever been there? You ever been there? Yeah. Now Daniel fainted and was sick certain days. Afterward I rose up and did the king's business, and I was astonished at the vision, but none understood it. Again, God does not want His people to be lacking in understanding. At the risk of sounding like a broken record once again, yeah, that young people, you know that thing that's coming back, vinyl? At the risk of sounding like a broken record, understand. Understanding is in your grasp and in my grasp. Understand. Fear of the Lord is what? The beginning of wisdom. The knowledge of the holy is understanding. It's right here. It's right here. It's all about how I apply myself. He's coming back real soon for a holy people. Scripture says, Sister Denise, and to them that what? Look for Him shall He appear the second time without sin unto salvation. He's already borne the sin of this world. He's coming back bringing salvation. Hey, thanks for checking out this latest message. We want to inspire and encourage you to be everything that God would have for you to be. So go ahead, hit the subscribe button now. You'll be connected to all of our latest videos. Thank you so much.